What has happened, everybody? James Hancock here. I'm back to review Onimusha, which dropped today on Netflix. The show's an adaptation of the video game series, which started back in 2001 with Onimusha Warlords, the very first game that I ever bought for my PS2. I absolutely love that game to pieces, and it was actually remastered back in 2019. So if you're a younger gamer and you want to take Onimusha Warlords for a test drive, you can totally do so. But to add an additional wrinkle, the show features an animated version of legendary actor Toshiro Mifune returning to the role of Miyamoto Musashi, which he famously played in the Samurai trilogy back in the 1950s. But I'm not going to beat around the bush when it comes to my opinion of the show. On the surface, I love everything that the show tries to do. I love seeing Netflix embracing Japanese animation and Japanese video games, and I love seeing them pay homage to Toshiro Mifune. But I have to admit that this show is a bit of a mixed bag. The action scenes are absolutely glorious, but this is one of those textbook examples where you've got too little story to support an 8-episode format. It should have just been a feature film. And I know shows are more popular on Netflix, and I know shows generate a lot more traffic and like total time viewed when it comes to the Nielsen ratings. But if your show feels limp, and if your show feels slow, and if your show at times feels boring because nothing's happening, well, then you're failing with the primary duty of delivering entertainment, irrespective of the Nielsen ratings. But for me, when you're watching a show or a movie based on a video game series, the most important question of all is it more fun to watch than it is to be a player for an equal amount of time? And I think the answer is a resounding no. And whenever I make that argument, people like to ask, well, what about the people out there who are curious about these stories, who are curious about these franchises, but who don't like playing video games? But for me, it's a weird business proposition or a weird model where you say, we're going to make video game adaptations and, on the big and small screen that are marketed towards people who don't play video games. I feel like the audience for video games is huge. I mean, video games generate more revenue than film and television. I think your primary duty is market to the people who fucking love Onimusha and then invite everybody else to come along for the ride. And who knows, they might end up buying one of these games for the first time. And before I go any further, I should acknowledge that I have a massive bias when it comes to video game adaptations because I'm kind of rooting for video game adaptations to take over and to kill the superhero genre once and for all. And in 2023, it feels like we're starting to see the sea change. Like The Last of Us was a massive hit on HBO. Super Mario Brothers was a massive hit in the theater. Five Nights at Freddy's on only a $20 million budget. It looks like it's probably going to have a bigger opening weekend this past weekend than a friggin' Marvel movie is going to have next week. And so like you can already see kind of a changing of the guard when it comes to like which franchises are more attractive to the big studios when it comes to adaptation. But even though I'm rooting for video game adaptations to thrive and to flourish, and I've got, dozens if not hundreds of games that I would love to see adapted successfully into film and television, that said, we can't have blinders on when a show fails to deliver, when a show drops the ball, or once again, when a show fails in the primary duty of being more entertaining than the game it's adapting. Because once again, if it's more fun to play the game, well then that's what I'm going to do. And I don't know what it's going to take to convince Netflix and Amazon Prime and Apple TV Plus that a lot of these streaming shows would be better off as movies. They'd be much more effective. They'd be much more economical. They just pack a bigger punch. There's greater potency with that 2-hour, 3-hour format as opposed to like an 8-episode slog where you're like, oh my God, I'm on episode 5 and episode 6 and like it's like slowing to a crawl. I can't even finish this fucking thing. And I think the gold standard on this front, or at least like the gold standard by which I'm judging this show, would be a movie like Ninja Scroll. If you want to combine samurai and demons into just the most intense story imaginable, I feel like Ninja Scroll is that hybrid genre putting its best foot forward. So if you were to judge this show on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being Ninja Scroll, 1 being, not so good, I'd say the show's about a 5 because when it's good, it's real fucking good. But when it's boring, oh my God, like I struggled to finish it. And just in case you didn't have the divine pleasure of living through the anime and manga revolution of the 1990s, Ninja Scroll came out in 1993 and is directed by Yoshiaki Kawajiri, one of the finest directors ever to work in the world of animation, and the movie gets my highest possible recommendation. But let's stay focused on Onimusha. The concept's real simple. You have a samurai with the power of the Oni, or the Oni Gauntlet, and basically the Oni Gauntlet allows, at least in the game, allows the protagonist to absorb the life essence of demons after he slays them. And when you're playing the game, half the satisfaction of playing the game is after you kill something, pausing, going and sucking up all these orbs, and in a weird way it almost kind of is like the exclamation mark at the end of every action scene, and it just like kind of like really helps like every action scene end with like this in this really satisfying fashion as you drink up the experience. And it's a concept that's been used in a million other games like collecting souls in the Dark Souls series. But what I really liked about the original Onimusha back in 2001, it had this interesting visual approach where every scene had a fixed camera. Like you would run into a scene and the shot would be at a really cool, like, dynamic angle, and like you'd slaughter all the bad guys. So because the camera's fixed and it won't move, you really did feel like you're in some sort of like kick-ass classic like samurai movie, as opposed to a more traditional format now with like the From Software games where the camera more or less is always kind of following you from behind, and if you look right, it looks right. But I did like that static camera angle or that static camera approach to Onimusha, and I'd be curious to see other games taking a crack at it. But I'm seeing here that the series has sold a total of 8.6 million copies worldwide, making it Capcom's 9th best-selling franchise behind Resident Evil, Monster Hunter, Street Fighter, Mega Man, Devil May Cry, Dead Rising, Ace Attorney, and Marvel vs. Capcom. So that's some very strong company in which the game series finds itself. But one of my main frustrations with this show is that it didn't employ the mechanic of the Oni Gauntlet nearly as often as I would have liked. I think there was one major moment in the series where you see Toshiro Mifune, aka Masashi Miyamoto, going and sucking up all those purple orbs, which once again, it's just a great visual flourish that sets Onimusha apart from other series or other animated series and other video game series. And I feel like the show would have been better served if they had leaned more heavily on some of the kind of stylistic motifs of the game, as opposed to trying to go off on their own direction. But if you're curious about who is behind this latest animated series, the supervising director is Takashi Miike, who's very famous in the world of live-action movies. I mean, his movie Audition will remain in the Hall of Fame or from some of the all-time most disturbing horror films, but he's also made some killer stuff like Ichi the Killer, which is really good. He did the remake of 13 Assassins. People who have not seen the original 13 Assassins like the remake quite a bit. People who have seen the original 13 Assassins like it less so. But he also worked on Blade of the Immortal. But the official director of the animated series is Shinya Sugai, who also directed Dragon's Dogma. And I should also add, and I hate that I even have to say this, but if you're going to watch this show, watch it in Japanese with English subtitles, assuming you're an English-speaking person. But when you're watching a Japanese movie, part of the delight, or part of the joy, the experience is like, even if you're not watching the real Toshiro Mifune, but even if you're watching like somebody kind of pretend to be Toshiro Mifune, hearing that dialogue delivery and like the way he growls and whatnot, you really aren't getting the full experience if you don't watch it in Japanese. And along those lines, I feel like one of the best aspects of the show, at least early on, was the way that the show tries to recreate or capture kind of those signature affectations and or mannerisms of Toshiro Mifune, because he has this mix of like boredom and insolence and like this kind of like I don't give a fuck attitude, where he's constantly like walking into a scene with his arms inside of his robe, acting bored, kind of yawning, scratching his beard. I mean, he's got all these classic mannerisms that are, justifiably famous. But when it's time for action, he's all business, and he becomes, a man of honor and a man of incredible skill and expertise. And if you're a babyface youth who has yet to see any of his classic movies, I think a good kind of sampler or beginner's guide to his movies. Obviously, you can watch his films that he made with Akira Kurosawa, Seven Samurai, all-time classic, Hidden Fortress, Throne of Blood. I mean, you really can't go wrong with those. Or fucking Yojimbo. Yojimbo's incredible. But he's got this giant filmography, and he worked with a lot of different directors. And I like the movies where we see him going up against Tatsuya Nakadai, like in Sword of Doom. Samurai Rebellion is a fucking amazing movie as well. So yeah, you really can't go wrong with any of the above. And I should also add that it was actor Akio Atsuka who brought Toshiro Mifune back to life. And he does a damn good job, and he's been doing animation for forever. I mean, he was in Paprika, he was in Ghost in the Shell. I mean, these are some of the best animated movies ever to come out of Japan. And I think he does a very good job as Masashi Miyamoto in this animated series. But as far as like recreating Toshiro Mifune is concerned, ain't nothing like the real thing, baby. So why am I so lukewarm on this show? As I mentioned before, they've got too little story for too much running time. I mean, the story is real simple. You've got Masashi Miyamoto, who is a living legend at this point, and he's leading a small band of adventurers up into this mountain where you've got all these demons and or kind of demonic possessed dead soldiers and that sort of thing. So you're basically always fighting either like dead samurai or living samurai who like suddenly will sprout four arms and have magical power. So if you love seeing crazy demonic shit and or undead, this show will absolutely deliver. But it's just, there's so many long periods where absolutely nothing is happening, where people are just like, at one point, there's 3 episodes in a row where the exact same characters are all sitting in the exact same setting, having these long conversations and the occasional fight. It's like, you know what? Maybe make this 1 episode, or better still, once again, condense this whole thing into a feature film, and instead of having like a 3.5, 4-hour experience, cut it down to like a lean 100-minute experience and make it a fucking classic. Or better still, take all the best fight scenes, set them to music, and just make like a highlight reel or a sizzle reel and post it on the YouTube channel on Netflix, or hell, even post it on Netflix itself, because when the combat is underway, it is so explosive and so stylish and so cool. And I guess that's one benefit of these long, slow, still scenes when the action will begin and like an arrow will fly at a little girl. And Masashi Miyamoto will just suddenly like stick his arm out and take the arrow, and then like it's fucking game on. And then you get these incredibly dynamic camera angles and great camera movements and just really fluid, beautiful animation. But in the end, no matter how many limbs we see get hacked off, or no matter how many monstrous transformation scenes we see, I feel like there's just not enough there. And they try to add an additional wrinkle where the Oni Gauntlet has like a negative influence on Masashi Miyamoto. I mean, Masashi Miyamoto is already the most legendary swordsman alive, even without the gauntlet, but he's unable to fight all these supernatural creatures unless he's using it. But over the course of the season, he's basically trying to figure out like, how much of this this power can I use without sacrificing my own soul? Like is he going to lose his humanity by embracing all this additional power? And I can't remember if that was a big part of the first game or not. Like, I don't ever remember at any point like the character having any ambivalence about the use of the gauntlet. If anything, you just absorb more souls, you gain more power, and you can kill more bad guys and that sort of thing. So yeah, it just didn't quite work. And I always like to remind myself, just because you want something to be good, just because you almost kind of need something to be good, that doesn't mean it is good. And I think for people who are curious about Onimusha, definitely have a look. Maybe the first season the first episode might have been the strongest of the bunch, so don't be fooled by that first episode, but it is really satisfying. But watch the clips that have been made available online, watch the trailer. If it really grabs you, definitely check it out. But I'm just going to recommend that people check out the 2019 remastered version of Onimusha Warlords, which at this point is a genuine, bona fide classic. So even though I didn't really like this show that much, my hope is that it might accomplish a few things. If it gets people excited about the work of Takashi Miike, awesome, because Takashi Miike, he has made so many just astonishingly good movies that are some of the most disturbing horror films that I've ever seen. He's one of the most prolific filmmakers on the planet from like the last quarter century. But as far as my own recommendations would go, you really can't beat a Audition. His short film, which he contributed to 3 Extremes, is one of the most disturbing horror films that I've ever seen. The Happiness of the Katakuris is a musical, which is absolutely hysterical and makes extensive use of claymation. And his contribution to Masters of Horror, an episode called Imprint from 2006, it's only an hour long. It will absolutely blow your fucking mind. And after people have been well and thoroughly traumatized by watching the horror films of Takashi Miike, maybe they'll wind back the clock to the 1950s, 1960s, and 1970s and watch some of the classic movies of Toshiro Mifune. And I won't claim to be the world's greatest expert on his work. The biggest expert I know in his work would be movie poster artist Tony Stella. And you can hunt him down on Twitter at Studio Stella if you have any Japanese cinema related questions. But I guess in the end, you're better off just playing the game, but better luck next time. I hope that we will continue to see just a tidal wave of video game adaptations in the world of film and television, because if you get a tidal wave, eventually some good ones will sneak through. And I feel like this year, 2023, is going to be regarded as the turning point where the video game adaptations started to really make their ascent. And I feel like this is the year. I mean, just look at all the different shows and movies that have failed in the superhero genre. I feel like this is a real sea change year where superheroes are going down, video games are going up. Someone should make like a really cool short film just showing video game characters and classic superheroes having a giant battle and just the superheroes getting absolutely eviscerated. If you make that movie, send me some royalties. But I guess overall, I wish I had a more favorable report to make. It's hard to do reviews of shows that are just okay or pretty good. Like our show or movie, if it's horrendous, those are very easy video to make. Or if a show or movie is fucking incredible, those are very easy videos to make. But I do like commenting on adaptations like this that invite conversation or commentary on other topics that I find more interesting. So I'm glad I saw it. I'm glad I reviewed it, but I can't give the show a very strong recommendation. But that is all I'm going to say on this particular front. Hope you enjoyed this video. If so, please consider liking the video, subscribing to the channel, hitting that notification bell. Hope everybody has a great weekend, but more importantly, as always, onwards and upwards.